Welcome, welcome, everyone. Dr. Stephen Hobbs here from the Wealth Movement, who sponsors the international mentoring community. And I'm making that reference, and that'll become obvious here in a few minutes. Joining me on this collaborative conversation today is
David B. Savage of Savage Management.
And David and I have spent many a time at a meal or a coffee, and certainly walking in amongst the trees and on the open prairie, just having conversations about different aspects of workplace and mega projects. But we've also leaned into conversations about mentoring. And that's why I wanted to bring up the international mentoring community, because the conversations I've had with David sparked the requirement, I'm going to use that word requirement, a must-have, that in the mentoring certification that the international mentoring community offers, one of the action outcome statements is use collaborative conversations in the mentoring arrangement. And I think it would be helpful for all of us is let's just do a quick overview, definition of what collaborative conversations is about. And then I think it might be kind of fun to look at words like coaching, mentoring, consulting, all right? And let's see what unfolds, because that will help with the use of this video in the library of the international mentoring community as well. So, David, you want to start us off with a definition of collaborative conversations?
Collaborative conversations are inclusive, insightful, innovative, learning together and reshaping, revisioning. So it's bringing many voices in to build whatever it is that we're attempting to build. It is respect, and collaborative conversation is also for the leader, the person in charge, the opportunity to resource the best wisdom available to her or him and then lead. So it's not an ongoing conversation. Well, it is an ongoing conversation, but at some point in time, the leader must lead. The decider must decide.
Yes, for sure. Well, I'll just add, from a collaborative point of view, I've always remembered the use of that word is where all that are involved have the ability to be assertive and cooperative in this conversation that's going on. And I've always liked the notion of the conversation. And when David and I had one of our, I think it was probably one or two before our last one, but again, he reminded me is I often talk about dialogue and collaborative conversations. And David said,
multi-log. So it's all of the voices, not just yours and mine.
Yeah, and I sort of took that to trialogue, multi-log. We did it because I used the try from triangulation. How do you bring different perspectives in? And I think that's what collaborative conversations nurtures and brings to the foreground is multiple perspectives, which I believe is a great segue, David, into what's mentoring, coaching, and consulting. Let's just use those three. So what do you think consulting is?
That's where I bring my expertise, my wisdom to answer the questions you ask me.
Yeah, and it's more than just lived experience. You're also maybe bringing some academic related material. And well, I read the last book and I know how to weave that into some of the work that I'm doing. So I can bring that to your attention, and it saves you having to learn it all. I can bring that consulting expertise to your group, and you're going to pay me for it, and right, and I'll help you out. So what's coaching?
Coaching is actually bringing the wisdom that you already have out. So it is not me telling, it's me actually asking powerful questions, and the answers are your answers.
Yeah, and so what's mentoring?
Mentoring is it's the place in between where it's an ongoing caring relationship where I can encourage, I can celebrate, I can challenge, and I can also bring in when I was in a similar situation, this is what I went through, and this is how I made those choices.
Yes. And this is where we're going to have a collaborative conversation, folks, because I have a slightly different variation on coaching and mentoring. And so I'm going to share mine, which is, and I'm going to do it around the topic of questions. The way that I see coaching is that the coach is asking the coachee questions for the most part about getting the performance that's necessary because there's a certain kind of outcome that's necessary. That's how I see it. With mentoring, the mentee is asking questions of the mentor's lived experience because they can then say, well, this is how I've done it, I've seen it, and I'm sharing it with you. So our two, they're linked. It's just a slight variation. And again, that's the beauty of collaborative conversations, is you can bring them out, and I'll have David share. But here's a learning point also, because this video is going to go into the library for the international mentoring community. I've been doing a lot of research on what's some of the most important terms. What are people searching for to learn about? And to a little bit of a, I didn't see that coming, is most people looking for the distinction between coaching and mentoring. But what they do is they'll use verse or and. So it's coaching versus mentoring, or coaching and mentoring. And those bring up different elements of conversation. But it's coaching before mentoring. You don't see mentoring then coaching. It's coaching and mentoring. So I just wanted, that's a bit of a sidebar, but it's something that I'm learning about in terms of how people are looking at this world of mentoring. And so those of you who are watching this and are doing the certificate of competence as mentor, this is something that will surface and will surface and will surface and requires collaborative conversations. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's the basis. When you look at Google search histories, this subject is increasingly on people's minds, and how do I use them to the best advantage that I need? So I think it's like searching collaboration 4 years ago. I think there was about 2 million searches 4 years ago in that year, and according to Google. And then 2 years ago, it was like 20 million searches. It was just huge. So coaching versus coaching and mentoring, the people are realizing that in our electronics, we adopted plug and play many years ago. And now we're increasingly adopting plug and play in a coaching relationship and in the mentoring relationship. And in a minute, Stephen, I'd be happy to give you a couple of examples of two recent coaching and mentoring.
Sure, go for it.
Okay, so mentoring. The last few years, I've been a mentor for the Haskayne School of Business, University of Calgary Masters of Sustainability program. And those students are just brilliant. They're just amazing international students who want to create a better future. And oftentimes what they'll come to me is, how do I actually realize my passion into an income? How can you help me align my learning for sustainability, economic development, and social responsibility and get paid well for it? So I mentor them because I can introduce them to my networks. I can challenge them. I can kind of move them along that pathway that they've chosen. In the coaching relationships in the last few months, it's getting those individuals to respond to those powerful questions so they realize themselves. So in some way, my experience in the last weeks and months, mentoring has been guiding and coaching has been realizing.
Yeah. And as we move in this world, because these are both educating approaches, and as David has written books, I've written books. One of them is about the 10 educating approaches that are available to us, mentoring being one. It's important for us to understand which what each one of those is about, because I'll use some phrases we use in IMC, which is you want to be deeper and richer in if you will, the philosophy, the concepts, the practices, so that you can be more thoughtful and tactful in your use of that approach. Because those are elements of leaning into this collaborative conversation world that David and I, promote whenever we can. Mega projects, workplaces, mentoring arrangements is to be able to deepen, enrich, and thoughtful and tactful. And any thoughts you want to add to that or take us somewhere?
Well, Stephen, you're just reminding me of the name of your movement, Wealth Movement, WELLTH, Wealth. And you've done that intentionally to get us to think about money and health in its various forms. So it's just a reminder of this is your and my and our wealth movement.
Correct.
One other part of it is sometimes when I'm a mentor, I can be a little more personal and transparent and say, I would like to tell you an example of when I was faced with that situation. And let's be really clear, while I talk about university master's students, you and I and many others mentor people in their 70s going through another transition, another evolution of their life. So this isn't an old guy to a young person. This is life as a mentoring, right? So the other part of that is to say, well, here's what I was faced with, and here's the criteria I made those decisions on. It just opens up another collaborative learning opportunity for the mentee.
Yes. And that's that being open to the head, heart, and hands. Well, here it is, right? I'm the mentee maybe in one moment. The next day I may be a mentor in that moment. And being open to moving and doing that dance is so important, right? Because as a mentor, I learn so much. As a mentee, I learn so much.
Yes.
Guess what? I'll be a mentor and a mentee. Let's go for it. I've got lots and lots to learn, because I jokingly say two things. Curious is my middle name, and I got more letters after my name than I do in my name. So
and or versus, I take particular delight when I ask my grandchildren to mentor me on any particular thing, because it develops that connection that they are now the leader, the experienced one. It can be anything that they really care about, whether it's trees or video games or sourdough bread, whatever it is. It allows them to see that they really matter to me, and I want to learn from them.
Yeah. And whenever I hear David share about the family, because I did not have kids, and so the children and grandchildren storyline. So when we get together, I love to hear how he's bringing the story of collaborative conversations in his way out of his family. And I go, oh, that's great. Thanks for that, David. And just thanks for that part. And thanks for that part. So that's wonderful. But I think would be helpful as we start to move to close this conversation off, your books, and what is it that you have about collaborative conversations that would be of value to mentors? And we'll put these in the show more notes, folks. You don't have to all of a sudden look for a piece of paper and a pen. We'll put all of this in the show more notes. But thoughts there?
So, Stephen, you've been a guest of mine on my podcasts, Breakthrough DS podcasts, and you've been in, I think, I believe it's 3 out of my 7 books on collaboration and negotiation, communication. 2 of the things that come up for me that I would be happy to share with your listeners, your mentees, your international audience is 10 essential steps to collaboration. So intentionally planning your collaboration in truth and inclusion and in vision and in openness and in leadership. Happy to share that with your audience. All they have to do is contact you and ask you, and we'll get that 10 essential steps to them as a reminder of how they can plan. And then I think the other thing is just realizing that nobody gets to be right. I don't get to be right. The older I get, the more curious I get, because I think curiosity is one of the key strengths of leadership today in the 21st century. And as long as I don't know, then I welcome you.
And there is so much truth there. And I was mentoring someone the other day, and they kept like vibrating on this whole other level. And I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Well, I got to know how to do this, and I got to know how to do this, and I got to know how to do this, and all this other kind." I said, "Time out. Well, let's take another spin on this." And I said, "Who could you ask so that you became a mentee?" And it was like, it shook them to their core. And they said, "I've been so used to doing mentor to everyone else, I forgot that I can be a mentee. And I'm being wound up about all these things. And all I need to do is just ask a few people, and I can have what I need that much quicker." And I just went, "Thank you."
Yeah. And in some ways, I'll be harsh. What a lonely, stupid thing to do when we have all this wisdom around us.
Yeah. Yeah. So I encourage everyone, mentor, get involved with mentoring, and being a mentee. And if the international mentoring community is a place that can help you out, then that would be great. We have a library that's available, made up of videos like this one. We have books that you can access. And if you feel called, you can actually go through a certification process for a certificate of competence mentor, which, to the points that I've been raising earlier, it's a deeper and richer appreciation of what it means to serve as a mentor, so that you can be much more thoughtful and tactful in your mentoring approach.
Yeah,
So,
if I might, Stephen, that is so important to actually learn the craft, because it is a craft. It is a brilliant way of being in relationship. And this is not just sitting around at a coffee table or having a beer together. You know, this is a profession.
it's certainly leaning into that world, that is for sure. So I tell you what, David, I'm going to give you the last word going out. What is a insight that is just sitting there that needs to be shared with the world, that connects collaborative conversations and mentoring?
What a beautiful collaborative question. I would also say, think about the quality of your questions, because the quality of your questions can be open and innovative and engaging and empowering, or they can be manipulative. So the quality of your questions.
For sure. So what I'm going to do with that one, I'm going to drop the phone on that one. So thanks very much, David. Catch you later. Thanks for watching the video. We have an ask of you. Make sure you click the subscribe button and click the bell beside subscribe so you can receive more notifications of the videos that we're loading up. And like the video, and especially if you could comment your insights. We would enjoy learning from you. Take care. Welcome, welcome everyone. Dr. Stephen Hobbs here.